Well, hello there. I'm going to go ahead and go over the code that I added where I'm cleaning up the audio. There's a couple things that are happening right now.
Red Rocket.
When we run our game here and I press my G key, if I collide with an enemy, that collide with enemy plays. But if I crash into the terrain, it says collide with enemy. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add this new variable called collide with terrain, and it's going to be a different audio. Now, I have instances of this audio in a couple of different places. There's Fifth Blocks. I'll go ahead and copy that link. Each class had a link to a placeholder audio available, so you can go get a placeholder audio until you can make one of your own. I have the expectation, if you want to get full points on this assignment, that you'll actually make a collide with terrain audio of your own, whether you use freesound.org or you create it yourself with the Blue Snowball and Audacity. In order to get full points, you have to create it yourself. If you use somebody else's audio, you will get less than full points. So, with this new variable set up, collide with terrain, I can now differentiate between these two audio clips. And an interesting thing about the Monaco editor, if you double click collide with enemy, you're going to notice off to the side here in the margin that there's like a little tick mark right there. Let me move that a little bit. See that little tick mark? There's another little tick mark also right down here. See that little tick mark? If I click that little tick mark, it will take me right to the code where collide with enemy appears further down in the bottom of the code. So, okay, that's cool. So I'm going to have to make some changes here. Let's play the collide with enemy audio. I'm going to hit my enter key a couple of times, and I'm actually going to take these two lines and I'm going to tab them over because I'm going to build something around that code. I'm going to put an if statement, and this if statement is going to say, if, how's this going to work? If I've got to remind myself how this is going to work. That's right. Right here. In this part of check element, we're detecting that an element the ship is collided with is tagged either is enemy ship or that element's tagged is terrain. And if this is true, along with enemy ship variable, that Boolean also being equal to true, if all these conditions are met, we're going to get inside of this else if statement, and we're going to execute all this code that's inside of here. A lot of stuff happens in that else if. All that stuff happens inside of that else if. If I collapse that else if, it's like the next thing is the next else if. So from that else if to the end of it, man, it's all right here. And there's even going to be an if statement now in here. And what we're looking here is we can just copy it. If we got in here because the element is tagged is enemy ship, if that's true, gotta have an opening curly brace, closing curly brace, then we're going to play the collide with enemy audio. And it would be nice to have a meaningful comment right here, like, check for what audio to play. So if it's tagged is enemy ship, we're going to play the collide with enemy audio. Now, very important that you put this in the correct spot. See where we are in our code? Right here after this if statement, it's got a curly brace right here, a closing curly brace. And directly after that, we're going to consider else. Check if is terrain. I'm pretty sure that E is, or that I is lowercase. Elm dot is terrain. So good. So now we have to build this whole thing. If, and I will go ahead and copy it from right here because it's nice and pretty and all ready for me. We'll paste it. Closing curly, couple of spaces, and then so we got the opening curly brace, the closing curly brace. And, we're going to have to tab our way into that point. When you click here, it might not be tabbed properly. There's a button on your keyboard on the far left side called Tab. Press the Tab key and it will tab you out to the correct spot. In this spot, we want to play the Collide with Terrain audio. And we don't need an O right there. Now let's pull this out and let's check out and see if it works.
Welcome to Red Rocket. Terrain collision.
There we go, terrain collision. Let's see what happens when I hit an enemy.
Collide with enemy.
Collide with enemy.
Terrain collision.
Now, the next thing we're going to take care of here is, did you notice that right here at the end, it played the terrain collision, and then right on top of terrain collision, it played the lose audio, because I lost. Player collision. Played the lose audio. The next thing we're going to do here is we're going to build a delay into our code. So to build that delay into our code, we're going to go back to the place in the code where we set up. So let me double click on Collide with Enemy, because that gives me a little tick mark that I can get my hands on. Click that and bam, I'm right back there, right where I wanted to be. I'll hit the enter key three times right here, right after the variable Collide with Terrain. Make a space, and then on that next line after that space, we're going to put here, what did I put? Audio delay variables. All right, so the audio delay variables. These are three variables we're going to use in order to create a delay. This delay is going to involve its own timer, a timer that will take over. It'll be in control of the game while it's doing its job, which is creating a delay. And when it's done, it'll return control back to, well, whatever decision was made. Did the player press Y? Did the player press N? Depending on what they pressed, it'll handle it. So audio delay variables. The first one we're going to call lose audio delay. So lose audio delay, we're going to set this equal to 25. That is how many frames that we need to go through 25 frames here. Our game runs at a frame rate of 25 frames per second. So this is going to create this creates a 1 second delay. We can increase to make the delay longer. All right. The second variable, got to be VAR there, Booth, is going to be, so I'm going to recycle lose audio delay, but I need to add something to it. Counter. This is going to be the variable that we're going to use to count our way to that lose audio delay. This variable starts out at 0. It's going to get called by a timer, and every frame that timer makes a function call on, every frame, that counter is going to get increased. After 25 frames, 1 second will have passed. And then we're going to have some code that's going to say, okay, time's up, do something else. And this last variable is our lose audio delay, and I'll use that again. And this will be our timer, and we're going to set that equal to 40. That's how many milliseconds we're going to have in between each function call to the function that's going to handle this delay. We're going to have to create a whole new function. So by the timer to create the delay, this one right here, this counts up to the lose audio delay. It's currently 25. So it's going to start at 0. It's going to count up to the lose audio delay, which is currently 25. And lastly, this one is used by our timer to create the delay. It's how many milliseconds between each function call to the function we're going to create. Now, from there, we went down to the game loop. And this is where, in first block on Wednesday, when I created all of this code, this is where I had to wander around in the desert for a while and make mistakes. First block got to watch me fail a whole lot. So here in the game loop, it's got this if statement inside the game loop. And right now it's the only thing that does anything in the game loop. If game active is true, then all of these function calls occur. Updating the score, checking clicking, moving the vehicle, moving the enemy ships, checking collisions, moving particles, adding particles, and moving any active projectiles. In between these last two curly braces here, this is the curly brace related to the if statement. This is the curly brace related to the whole function. Try, please, to not break these curly braces. I've got my mouse right in front of this curly brace on line 252, and I'm going to move it down like 4 lines. And then 2 lines down, I'm going to put in a comment. And this comment's going to be, start the delay timer if needed. All right, start the decay timer, delay timer if needed. Tab back out, so I'm properly tabbed. So this is going to involve an if statement. I've got to find out, if certain conditions are met, and if certain conditions are met, I'll start my delay timer. So one of the conditions is that game active has got to be equal to false. Here we use the comparison operator, the double equal sign, for comparing these two values. During a lot of the game active is true. But when we get to a lose screen or a win screen, game active gets set to false, and that's where we know we're going to need to have a delay. The other variable is replay. That's got to be equal to true. This means we're at that press the G key screen, waiting for something to happen, waiting for the player to do something. And again, for this if statement, it needs an opening curly brace and it needs a closing curly brace. Make sure you get those opening and closing curly braces. Inside here, we're going to start the delay timer. This will be a set timer, and we're going to call a function that doesn't even exist just yet. We're going to call a function that does not even exist, and this function is called handle lose audio delay. Now that's the function that the timer is going to call. And it's going to be using the lose audio delay timer to set how many milliseconds between each call to this function handle lose audio delay. And then I can close this back up, remove those extra lines I didn't need now. So I've got my closing curly brace for this if, got my closing curly brace still for the whole function. This would be a good point in time to make sure your code still works. Let me press the run button.
To Red Rocket.
If I press my G key, by the way, I'm going to get a syntax error. I will get a syntax error because at the moment, this function handle lose audio delay, it doesn't exist yet. I haven't made it. So let's go make this function. Now, please be careful. One way to make this idiot proof, hopefully, collapse the game function, collapse key down. That's these little triangles right here. They appear when you mouse over. Right here for key down, collapse key down. Right here for game, collapse game. Do you see that blank line in between the two? There's a blank line. For me, it's line 259. Right inside there, give me about 4 lines of space, and let's make a comment. This function handles, and we're going to say this one handles audio delays. Because it's not actually going to work just for the lose audio. So long as your lose audio and your win audio are about the same length, it'll handle either one. If they're different lengths, we can make some subtle changes to this function and it'll still work. So that'll be kind of cool. So let's see, the function handles audio delays. And so we're going to need here on this line the word function, because that's a JavaScript command like var. It declares we're making something that JavaScript knows about. So function, and we're going to call this one, and there it is. Because at the end of the game loop, I'd already typed handle lose audio delay. I'd already typed it there. Because I'd already typed it there, making sure I properly camel cased, capital L, capital A, capital D, Monaco Editors picked it up, and Monaco Editor will type it for me. Cool. That's the function name. Open close parenthesis, open curly, couple of enter keys, and a close curly. And then I can bring up those spaces and get inside the function. And then inside the function here, got some stuff I need to do. First thing I need to increment the lose audio delay counter. Lose audio delay counter. Increment it. I need to increase it by 1. That's the first thing I need to do. Then the next thing I need to do is I need to check. Could say this what? Stop no, check if time is up. There we go. Hit check. Got that capital H. Shouldn't be there. And I'm tabbed over. So check if time is up. That's going to involve the if. Not only that, lose audio delay counter, I'm checking to see if that number is equal to the lose audio delay. That would mean that it's counted its way from 0 to 25 and time is up. We need to do something. So with my if statement with its opening and closing curly braces, I'm going to play the lose audio. So that'll be lose audio dot play. Get the right keys here, Booth. Hit my enter key a few times. Notice how this closing curly brace for this if statement is moving down the screen. And right here, I will go ahead and put a comment. And we're going to say here, we're going to stop the delay timer. So that'll be a stop timer, handle lose audio delay. That'll stop that timer from being called. Now, at this point, we're almost ready for it to work. Secretly, it does work, but well, there's one thing I want to do so that we can just see that it's going to function. We have to go down to the lose audio. So if I double click lose audio right here, somewhere in code, it already is told to play. I don't want to be telling it to play in 2 places. So by double clicking lose audio, you can see there's a tick mark right here. That's the first time we make it. There's lose audio. And then there's the tick mark right here. And that's where we're at the moment inside of, that's the lose function. Right there. There we go. That's where we just were in the handle lose audio delay. And then down here, this third tick mark. This is where I want to make it not play. So where it says lose audio dot play here, I'm going to put 2 forward slashes right there to comment out that line of code. That will turn that line of code off. And now I can play test it.
Welcome to Red Rocket. Collide with enemy. Terrain collision. Collide with enemy.
There we go. We got a delay. But there's a problem. If I press the Y key to play again, and if I go through dying,
terrain collision. Terrain collision.
I don't get any loser audio here. You bet. So I don't get any lose audio playing. The fix for this is pretty easy. We're going to go up to the key down function. Had it collapsed right here. The key down function is where we handle that press of the Y key. So here we're getting the G key. Don't need that. Can collapse that if. Here we're looking for the control key. Don't need that. Can collapse that if. Here, keyboard letter Y. That's the one I want. We got variables we need to reset when we're going to play the game again. And one of those variables we need to reset is the lose audio delay counter. That has to be reset back to 0. So with that reset back to 0, now
Welcome to Red Rocket.
I'll
Terrain
play
collision.
to my death
Terrain collision.
and press my Y key and go to play again.
Terrain collision. Terrain collision. Terrain collision.
And it works as expected. So we had to reset that variable. The last thing I want to talk about before I wrap this one up is just to help you know where you're supposed to play the goodbye message. That's supposed to happen when you press the N key and you go to the credits screen. Notice here that I'm in the key down function where I press the N key. This is where we clear the screen, put up the credits graphic, set quit equal to true. So right here, we're going to play the goodbye message. And that would be goodbye message dot play. And as long as you didn't remove my placeholder audio, this will be good to go. You can test this and
Red Rocket.
see if it works. Let me
Terrain collision.
quickly get myself to my death.
Terrain collision.
And I'll press my N key.
Goodbye message.
And the goodbye message plays, just like expected. That wraps up what I did in code yesterday and on Wednesday, live before first block, where they got to watch me fail until I got success. Thanks for viewing. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in class.